streaming, everybody. Yeah, so welcome to this open briefing on, I don't think it's what's on my list.
No, it is.
It is, Waikanae pop-up. So Darren's away, so we have Isaac with us today. Welcome, Isaac. And I think Chris is going to introduce.
I am. I'm going to support. So, yes, Darren Grant is always sick today, but we have the pleasure of Isaac joining us. And in fact, Isaac's been doing most of the work on this, so it's great that he's here actually. And I thought what we might do is step you through our presentation and then come back to questions if that's all right. But I'm going to start by just taking you back. You will recall that 56 to 62 Main Road, Waikanae came up for auction, and that you made the decision that we would make a strategic purchase for that because of its importance to the Waikanae town centre. We talked to you at that stage about some of our town centre work. It's sort of more medium to longer term that we'll be getting.
It's just a practice, everybody. Yep. I mean, just a test.
Great, that we'll be getting, we'll be talking more about that, but in the interim that we would find, and I'm going to label it this way, some cheap and cheerful opportunities to make sure that we make use of the space in the short term. So that's really what we're going to start to talk to you about today. And part of the reason that this is an open briefing is we have talked to the Waikanae Community Board about this. So, and they've had a discussion with us, shown support for it. And we've also been talking to the Waikanae Business Association and the community. So we've got some support for our short-term position. The next slide being the current sort of situation is, as you know, the building that we purchased had a few issues, and that impacted its usability. So it had asbestos, and obviously in the longer term that was not going to be it would require a lot of investment, and the reality is we would not use it in that form. So the building's gone, it's been removed. And we are currently looking at the opportunity for temporary usage of the site using some pop-ups. The opportunity, as I mentioned, has been discussed with the Business Association. Now, you will know, because we've talked about it before, but there are some challenges in Waikanae for businesses. For a number of reasons, there's not enough space for business. There's not enough rooms for hiring to do things. And our businesses said to us that was a primary issue for them that they, if we could, would be good to help them with. So we've been looking at an opportunity around bringing in some containers and sort of other similar types of prefabricated buildings that offer a low-cost way for us to temporarily, I'm going to use the word, fit out that space. We have worked alongside Rosalind Derby, who some of you may know, to develop a concept plan, which we do share in this presentation today. And as you'd expect from Rosalind, it looks really great. It's very worked up. And the reality is we are still working and testing through the process. So I just do want to note that. Importantly, the premise for this pop-up is it's designed to be cost neutral. We are looking and will charge reasonable rent for the use of the space. Mixed tenancy options would be available, and that includes people being able to rent for the day, week, or if it's more regular, they have that opportunity too. And we've already had strong interest in our tenancy options and use, and that's obviously an important part of this being viable to do. I've flicked up on the screen something you can't read, but it is an algae hub if you want to have a bit more look. That was the picture of the initial sort of concept design for the space, and really what Rosalind has presented after getting some feedback from the community that we chatted about is just a really good use of the space. You'll see in there that we were looking at 6 or so containers that would have different uses. There's also the idea that there'd be an accessible toilet available, and also I'm going to say yeah, it is a small kitchenette, isn't it? I was going to describe it slightly differently, but a kitchenette, because actually food and beverage cluster, there's people interested in being able to use that space there. So it's got to feel that it can become really part of that community feel and hub, but also making sure that it links back to the existing space. So obviously it's going to change over time, but in the short term, that's what we're looking at. This is just a bit of a snapshot of what a prefab container might look like. Need to mention green space, important. So temporary access ways, opportunities for businesses and community, because there was also there's been interest for there being just space for community networking and engagement. I've mentioned the other bits on here, but we're not obviously looking at fresh new prefabs. We've looked at refurbed prefabs that could be reused. So, mentioned that we chatted to the Waikanae Community Board. Following that, we are going to continue to engage with key partners and stakeholders. We're at the moment just trying to understand any consent requirements for the space. We're also looking to understand whether ground and civil work is required. At this stage, we would expect that to be minor. And what it would take to implement the design. So that would be things like the containers being located on site, connection to services, and actually confirming those initial businesses and organisations that wish to occupy the space. We'd also be looking to organise a community day to introduce a new pop-up area, and of course be looking to invite you to that. And we'd be releasing information about the initial business and organisations that will occupy the site. So I guess what I want to reiterate is us coming back to you about this site was on the basis of your previous decisions, the intent that you'd given to us. We're operating on a cost-neutral basis, so the idea is it's not adding cost to our ratepayers, and that it's leveraging off what's actually been done in other districts, which has been successful, and learning from why and how that was successful. And obviously, they can be shifted. So the risk to this kind of concept or pop-up design is pretty low, and as I said, cheap and cheerful. So on the basis of that, I think we'll pause and take questions.
I've got a few. I'm going to go first for once. So how do we achieve cost neutrality?
We achieve that because we're charging for the space, and because we've looked to go as cheap and cheerful as we can. This is not a bells and whistles setup. It is the basics, but designed in a... and this is not Rosalind Derby's language at all, but in an attractive way, making the best use of the space. I think the other reason...
Sorry, it seems like they're going around and measuring that the alarm is loud enough in each room because they just put a sound device on the table. Oh. Yeah, I think we could have given them verbal assurance of that after the first time, but... But we'll just try and ignore it and carry on and not get distracted or frightened by it. So, Chris, carry on.
Terrified.
Yeah. I will continue. The operating costs for any tenants being in the space are covered as part of rent. So we are looking to recover what effectively is a small capital outlay for the containers themselves. So that's what we're recovering essentially through this process. So it covers operating costs, it covers the cost of the containers, so we're not left needing to pay for anything for the space. That's how it's cost neutral.
So there are no consents required for the containers or for the kitchenette?
That's what we're working through at the moment, but any costs will be part of the operating costs that are recovered. So when we've been talking to people, we've been clear about that. So we'll come back to you with more detail around that, because where we're at the moment is in our discovery kind of phase, exploring phase. So we've got what it's going to look like. We've got interest and indication. I want to say that we've got, I think last time I heard there's 6 tenants who have indicated they're ready to go. And once we have further information, we'll come back. But I'm saying to the table and openly, we're looking to be operating a cost-neutral approach. So we're not looking to sit and recover the cost of this.
Yeah. So I guess listening to what councillors have been saying lately, and with our view to look at our activities and what we're spending over the next year, trying to keep our rates rise next year as low as possible. From my point of view, I'm keen to keep looking at it, but if the costs start to go up or that cost neutrality can't be achieved, then I think I'm speaking for the table when I say that we would want to have another look at it rather than committing absolutely to it at this stage. So, yeah, I don't know how to approach it from that point of view.
I think today we were giving you an update on where we'd got to, rather than seeking approval, because we still have work underway. And it's more, I think there was an interest in having an update. We did update the Waikanae Community Board, wanted to make sure that we'd updated you as well. So,
yeah,
I'll take it as...
Sometimes silence is taken as acquiescence, so...
Oh, right, okay, no. And I think those are fair points.
So we just want to be really
that.
clear. I think things have changed since we first bought the site and since we first thought about it. The indications we're getting from central government have changed. Since then, we've gone through a long-term plan with a 17% rates rise, and we've committed to a program spearheaded by Councillor Coe, where we dig deep into our activities and make sure that we're not imposing any costs that are unnecessary on ratepayers, and that we're getting bang for buck for every activity that we do. So we want to keep investigating this, but we want to make sure that we're ticking all those boxes as we move forward. I'll move on to Nigel. And if anybody disagrees with that statement, please just say so. Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll just go in order. You can always add. We can backtrack. Yeah, it's just easier that way.
I wouldn't dare disagree with anything that you said, Madam Mayor. I do think there's some reputational risk of not using the site, of just leaving it as it is. Having said that, I'm assuming that this is a trading cost neutral rather than a cost recovery neutral, because there are costs that you're not going to be expecting to get back, but that's okay. Can I just suggest, by the way, that the word container is the wrong word? We should be using a different word. If you went out there and said to the average punter, "Oh, we're going to put some containers on there," they are thinking like, the containers that you see that are just usually ugly and rusty and horrible. These things aren't that at all. I would call them pods. Make up a name, because they're really lovely. Business pods, whatever they are. But they are. I was really surprised when I saw them. Thought, wow, these things are really cool. We could have a little eyesight in one of those sorts of things for Waikanae. There's a whole bunch of things anyway. So I'm completely spoiled. So who's the landlord? Who's the rent collector? Who goes around with the bag and the batons to collect?
Technically, yeah, it's actually you, Nigel. No, technically speaking, the contracts we're setting up are with council, and it's through the economic development.
I think it's the property team as well, so we're going to set up the same booking system.
So just use the mic. Yep.
Sorry. So we've been talking with the property team. We're going to set up a booking system similar to how you book out halls and meeting spaces, similar to that, and that'll have the hourly rate, the weekly rate, the monthly rate. Yep.
And presumably, like what's vacant, what's available.
Yes.
Availability.
We'll have a bit of availability.
Cool. Because that works well on council's current website in terms of the hall's availability and hours. It's got the whole calendar thing. It's really cool. Okay. So the next thing for me is, oh yeah, just the last thing really, is the impact on the Te Ara Whetū build. So you're going to have a construction site which you could throw a stone and hit it. It's that close, right? And because of the library, because of the build, substantial build, obviously, is going to largely happen from the back of the library. They're not going to be constructing from the Mahara Place side. You can't do it from the side because that's where the Mahara Gallery is, and you can't do it from the supermarket side because it's a supermarket. So it's mainly going to come from the back. Now that's going to be right next to. It's going to be a substantial construction site for about at least 12 months, right next to it. So I'm just wondering, is there, and I couldn't see it on Rosalind Darby's plan, but some method of separation from the construction site, and also there's kind of a health and safety issue there as well.
Yeah, so we did flag that early with the project team of the build there, and we have met on site with them to run through our plans, and they didn't flag anything immediately with us in terms of accessibility or any sort of safety issues. But no, they didn't explicitly say that the build was happening from the back, so that's probably good for us to understand as well, so thank you. Cheers.
And if I could just add to that, we do have an ongoing connection between between these projects to make sure that they are connected and planning together, and that we don't run into any issues like that.
That's it for me.
Yep, look, this is great. I love the cost neutral, but not trying to stack too much into that recovery. You know, we want to get the businesses moving, which is fabulous. What sort of time frame are we looking at with regards to this? They'll be obviously coming back with regards to substantial costings and push and go, but how quickly can we actually put this in place?
So I think there'll be a couple of consents, site consents to work through, but sort of we're in the phase of gathering what we need to make those applications, and then 20 working days from there with no RFIs if we can push it through. So
I guess we're saying pre-Christmas?
that's what we're aiming for. Yeah.
Sweet.
That was the idea. Talking to the businesses, it would be really good if we could set up and possibly have a little
Over summer?
Christmas weekend or something on the site with local businesses. Yeah.
Well, it'd be good for the businesses if they need lead-in shopping Christmas and this sort of. Other one's parking for me. The sites themselves, will they have any sort of allocated parking in that car parking area at back as such? Because parking is always a problem for any business with regards to staff or the person who's actually there on.
No, there's no allocated parking back there. I think there's just a loading bay possibly, but that's about it. It is pretty pokey back there as the layout is. If you've ever been back there and it's chocker, it's a little bit tricky to navigate.
So what's perhaps Richard, guys might know, what is the story about business owners up there and parking? Where do they park? Oh, okay. Oh, we own that anyway.
Yeah.
Don't we?
I think it is the car
If there was
park.
if there was a problem, could we allocate maybe 6 parks in the mall car park for each one of the owners or something? Maybe just something. Maybe to consider.
We'll take that aside and come back on that point. And I think I might just add that some of you who will know Sarah, who's the Waikanae Business Association chair, we may well bring her to our next briefing so that you can hear from them some of the challenges and problems they're having in the Waikanae town centre space for business at the moment. So I think there's a real concern that businesses are actually going to leave Waikanae. And so they have been very supportive in us thinking or working alongside them to problem solve. So we will bring that back to the table as well, because Sarah, I think this addresses a lot of the concerns that have been raised by a business community. In fact, I mean, I need to say it the right way. We obviously need to do the building we're doing, but it's having impact on them, and so we're looking at how we're supporting them in that space as well. So we may bring her with us so that she can share those thoughts.
No, that's so good. That's it from me.
Oh, thank you. I think this might be a project for the urban panel to look at. Now, look, what's the lifespan of it? Is it? It's not a permanent fixture, is it? The development.
No, it's not.
Right.
So we are suggesting short term, depending on other plans that occur, is it's more 24 months cycle-ish. And so when I did talk about cost recovery, I was talking about the whole thing. So we were looking at the outlay to set it up and our rent being set at a range that recovers that, as well as operating costs, so that it basically breaks even at the 24-month mark. So we've been very careful at how we've looked at that. Of course, acknowledge that there may be things that pop up, but the idea was it pays for itself. It's something that business had wanted, and we were looking at how we could help problem solve in a short-term way while we're doing longer-term things.
Okay. Without being furnished with the drawings, which I'd really appreciate to get a hard copy of, there looks like, a cluster of 3 units both sides of a courtyard, which will have landscaping and paving and things like that. You've taken that into consideration, haven't you? And the effect of the businesses that go in there, they'll have substantially reduced rents, is that right, compared to other rentals around the place?
No, we haven't promised to have reduced rent at all.
For instance, if you get a cafe in there, will it detract from the existing cafes, things like that? Has that been considered, the business model there?
I think the demand for space in that centre is high. If you walk through the main area, you'll note that there's empty buildings. Some of the businesses have been trying to rent space and have not been able to for a variety of reasons, which is why we've got 6 odd businesses ready to sign up now, because they are absolutely dying to have somewhere to be. Okay. And so, no, we're absolutely not looking to have subsidised rent or reduced rent. Is to pay for the space that's available because there's demand for it. And so when we come back, we can tell you a bit more about that. I don't have those numbers on me today, and as Darren's way, Darren does not have those numbers to share today either. But when we come back, we'll put that all on the table so you can see how it all sits together. But we're really not trying to undermine any of the existing businesses or cause further challenge in that space. We're trying to address a problem.
Yeah, thank you. And shared facilities, the kitchen that you referred to, is that shared by the units, or do you have a kitchen for each unit?
No, so there'll just be one with a shared kitchenette. So half of the unit is a shared kitchenette and the other half is an accessible bathroom.
Bathroom,
Yep.
okay, thank you. It'd be good to look at the drawings, thanks.
Yeah, cool, I can share those with you.
Thanks, Chris. You actually answered quite a few more questions, which was quite good. So, if you have an oversupply of people who want to go in there, what will be the criteria for selecting them? And how are you going to, what's the thinking around letting everyone know that this is available, or have you already selected the businesses? How's that happened?
The reason I mentioned we'd be working with the Waikanae Business Association is because they're quite well established in Waikanae, and there's a lot of businesses linked to them. So they already had a list of people looking for space. So that's how that started. But we're wanting there to be mixed use. So some of it will be that people can rent the space, and some of it will be available more by the week or by the hour. So we'll do mixed use because we know that there is strong demand. So we're undertaking, I think, a fair and reasonable process, but also at this stage it's been, because we're still exploring, we obviously don't have contracts in place, but that will be our intention. So we'll be setting rent, and then we'll be looking to get those who are most interested will obviously put themselves to the front of the queue.
So that process will be run by us, not the Waikanae business?
We're working alongside them.
Yep, okay.
We can come back to you on that if it's helpful, because you've obviously got something that you're thinking, is that fair and reasonable? The only thing I can say to you is a lot of businesses up there, and actually Sarah's written to me and given me a long list of issues they have, is that they just cannot get the space to do basic things. And so, as I said, some people are thinking of moving out of Waikanae because there's nowhere to be, which would be unfortunate.
I see the concept, the shared workspace down at Paparan Beach hasn't been a great success from what I sort of understand. What is it? The collective. Yeah, the collective. So would you be thinking the shared workspace is for someone to do their computer work as office space, or as a rolling shop? So the potter selling the pottery from Otaki. Next week or in the afternoon it's someone selling flowers. On Saturday morning it's someone selling, or will it be set up for the office worker who just needs someone for their secretary to work at for the day?
To be fair, I'm going to say, from the engagement I've had to date on this, we've had a mixed range of people from actually, there's some people who were interested who want to do yoga and have a space for it. And they were looking at how you'd use that in that sort of inward flow and outward flow, to people that sell things like clothing. And I'm sure you've got a longer list of them. But there was a wide range of retail and mixed business that are looking for space there that can't find it. Yeah.
From a commercial perspective, will it be driven commercially in that if you've got an oversupply of businesses that want it for 24 months versus it being rented for an hour on a Saturday and then someone's paying $30 as a number I'm pulling, whatever. Someone's paying $50 for half an hour on Saturday, and then it's not rented out till the following Wednesday.
I think we're getting into a bit of detail there.
Well, no, it's just
so
it's
a little bit
it's
wheezy.
not so much the detail; it's around the model,
Yeah, so
the commercial model.
Yeah, so it's a good broad question around thinking about the commercial model and maximising return.
Yeah.
And look and how that's run, and as that's further progressed, I think the message we're getting is that we want to see more information about that. Would that be fair?
What I can say is we'll come back with the numbers. We'll come back on the next lot of detail that we have. To your point, we've heard the point about making sure that it meets the requirements in our adjusted settings. And so we'll definitely be coming back with that detail. Me saying that it's cost neutral out to 24 months is not on the basis that it's a fully commercial model that we've said we need every single unit booked in for 2 years. We've acknowledged that there might be community desire to use some of the space.
Yep.
So we'll come back and set that out to you to check that it's meeting your expectations for what we'd be doing in that space.
I'm all for maximise commercial potential, I guess, would be my perspective, but there may be other people with different perspective on that.
Do we have a general nod around that? So we can.
No,
see if we
I
have a-
want to push back on some of this because
Okay. Feel free.
look, I
Liz.
think the purpose of this is to. I think the purpose of this is to provide some vibrancy to Waikanae and to give some opportunities for people to do some things there that they haven't been able to find space for. It's not about maximising profit to the nth degree. There are other considerations here. It needs to be cost neutral, yes, agreed, but this is about adding something of value to the whole community, not just, it's not just driven by profit, it's not just driven by the benefits that are going to the businesses that are there. This is going to create a really exciting space for people to be. It's right by the train. And, I've talked to Rosalind about some of the other ideas she has for the space in terms of, projecting, art and stuff onto the walls there, having cool lighting, and doing some other things in that car park space out the back as well. So to me, this is, it has a lot of other benefits. So long as it is cost neutral, I think we should just get on and do it. I mean, I'm a get on and do it kind of person. Having been in business for 18 years, why are we mucking around? I would hate to see this project delayed because it has to come back to council for sign off. When all we're requiring is, let's set some basic criteria. We want it to be cost neutral. We want it to be a fair and reasonable process that takes, everybody's interest into consideration. What are our other criteria? If we can agree on that, then let's just go and do it. Why do we need to have, report backs to council if those criteria are met? Let's just get it in place because people are actually desperate for space.
Yeah.
They are desperate for space, and I think once people see this in operation, I think they'll be quite excited by it.
I don't know if it's helpful for me to say, this is not a $10 million project. And we're talking it more being down at 150,000 that's going to be recovered, so it's cost neutral. In the wider scheme of, and I will say it this way, because it would also be depreciated over time, it isn't like the way that it's accounted for, you'd be talking at about a 0.001% impact on rates type scenario. This is not a big, oh my goodness, we spent 10 million. That said though, it's cost neutral, that's what we're aiming for. So we're doing our due diligence, but to your point, we're probably spending more money talking about it in this room than we are in actually doing it. So
It's
just being honest.
Yeah, we don't want to use up too much staff time and reporting back and analysing everything to the nth degree, because that's only adding to the cost. Let's just get on and do it. Let's be practical about it. That's my perspective on it anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, assuming that we are talking small amounts of money and we are talking about it being cost neutral.
Yeah.
All I was meaning at the start was if it starts to become a lot more expensive than we thought it was going to be,
come back.
then we want to hear about it.
Yeah, but if it's cost
In
neutral,
principle,
let's
it's a
just go
great
on and do
idea.
it.
We know that people need the space. That's why we bought the land in the first place.
Yeah.
But we just need to, all I was saying at the beginning is we just need to be a little bit more careful
agree.
than we've ever had to be before.
yeah.
So just as long as we're careful and it doesn't blow out, and things can blow out, you know, it's not an unreasonable,
Agree.
you know, thing to be worried about, then yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Get on and do it. Okay, who's next? I just want to point out again that we don't have to follow the list. Okay, the list is not, you don't have the, you know, it's not, I'm next on the list, so I'm necessarily going to speak next. It's just an indicator. It's just a microphone system. So, but we do have next on the list, Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you. So first of all, I just wanted to reiterate that, you know, I suppose Waikanae has been a construction zone for years. And on top of that, there are a number of long-term vacant residential sites that have put commercial, or you know, they potentially are retail, that have not been able to be leased out for a number of reasons. And I think Waikanae town centre is really struggling, and I think that this opportunity would actually really add some life into Waikanae. Saying that, I would really like to know that a business case is being done so that the costs won't blow out. And you're saying that Sarah, or through Sarah, there are about half a dozen businesses that have actually indicated they'd like to move in there. Have they been given any price expectations about what they would pay? Because that's the, you know, the key thing. If they say yes, then find out that to actually make it cost neutral, the prices are too high, then it's going to be a big no.
I know that at least 3 definitely have been given indication, and that it will be in line pretty much with other council booking spaces. And there is one that is looking at a long-term sort of, I think it'd start probably with a year, and we have talked weekly rent with him. So yeah.
Because I suppose too, if you're renting something on an hourly basis, the returns on that's going to be a lot less than someone who's actually renting something permanently.
I think maybe what I can confirm is as we come back to you, because even though we've said we want to be practical, we will be coming back to you with the detail, because for transparency purposes we should. We haven't bought that today because we were just talking about this as a concept, here's where we're at. We will come back to you with that so you can see it. I'm just saying to you for now, so you know, we are operating on, it's a cost neutral basis. We have people interested. We've been starting to do our due diligence. We will come back to you. So we haven't locked and loaded ourselves into something we can't pull back from, and also we haven't committed ourselves to a bunch of costs that we go, oh no, we've just added further burdens. We haven't done any of that. We are still in exploratory zone, but we wanted to let you know where it was heading and what we're doing, and to understand what it is that more information you'd want. And so we've got those ongoing discussions happening in the background.
Yeah, thank you. And so I suppose yesterday we went. There was the opening of the Otahanga recycling centre, and what we saw there is 2 buildings, 10 by 5 or something, being built out of. Yes, 10 square metres being built out of, I suppose, recycled material. And to me, being able to include, something like that in the site would be I think that'd be a win-win. Just putting, just flagging that. Not necessarily all of them because of the time it might take, but just to show that what you can do if you actually put your mind and actually adds to our overall, I suppose, recycling and strategy. Okay.
We'll note that down.
Yeah,
We'll note
I
that
think
down.
that is a really real opportunity. Thanks for raising that. Yeah. Nigel?
Yeah, just quickly, I just wanted to concur with Comrade Coe's practical socialism, as always. Just, the Nike, just get on and do it. And Chris, you're right, we've probably spent more money in this room making a decision than the cost of this thing. The one thing, just as a corollary to this is council making a decision about providing opportunities for Waikanae businesses. I really like to see council doing the same in the rest of Mahara. So, for instance, and this comes back to this table, and now that Isaac's sitting here, because he might have a nice sharp knife and a gun out the back, there is commercial space, retail space in Mahara that has been empty for 25 years. Literally 25 years it's been empty. And we have to do something about it. It will be empty for another 25. It is no good for your retail shop if the shop next to you is empty for a long period of time. And it's been a long period of time, and it's a blight on the whole of Mahara. And so while you're having a look at this, if this is the space you're in, please, I'm happy to put my hand up and say, let's do, the bloody whatever you have to do it, to make that change.
I will say, with Darren Grant not here, that I do know that we have been in discussions in that space for some time, and beyond Darren Grant actually been here. And that's why I also mentioned the Waikanae Business Association, because I know that they've been getting some advice about that very point, with an intention to take some action themselves. So we're very much in that space and trying to see how we can help from an economic development perspective.
I must be next on the list. Not that there is a list. From a Waikanae Community Board point of view, it was really good to have this discussed at our last meeting, but I actually had a meeting with Darren Grant on the 16th of July about this. So this is my third go at it. At the time with Darren, I asked him, who's paying for all this? And he said it was part of the economic development budget, and that the containers have been ordered already.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sort of talking like the costs have yet to be decided, but basically the bulk of the costs have already been spent. So this is more about how you're going to put it on the site and get going with it, along with Comrade Coe's statement. Let's just get on and do it. The one other point I'd like to make, because I think it's a fantastic idea and we were very supportive of it, is how does it link through to Mahara Place? And you're getting a presentation by the Te Ara Whetū, I almost said the L word, this afternoon, and it's how that links through, going through this site, through that site, and into Mahara Place, which I think is probably an important thing to consider. It's sort of not this is only a temporary thing, but it needs to be in the minds of councillors that this was bought, the section was bought to enable a connection from the library through to Mahara Place. So I'm not going to get the library thing, and I think you'll be disappointed by that, by the connection. So it might be something worthwhile to keep in the back of your mind. But otherwise, we think it's great. Let's get going and get it in before Christmas, because it's no point putting it in March.
Do I have general agreement about that? Let's get going. Yep. Brilliant.
You know, I'm going to take the
So what you're suggesting, Rob, is kind of an operational matter rather than a governance matter. But for your interest, sure,
Yeah,
we can get you
put
a
on.
hard copy. Yeah. And we've asked the governance question, have you taken everything into account in terms of cost? I was quite clear on that at the start. Sorry if I was a bit negative,
No.
because I think this is a fantastic thing and it is something that we've progressed. But everything that we do now, we have to look at it with a sharper focus. And that's something that has been very clear from elected members around the table, particularly Councillor Coe. So I'm just putting our action where our words are, and this is one of the first cabs off the rank that we need to put that laser sharp focus on. And I don't mean bang for buck in terms of commercial gain. I mean bang for buck in terms of community good and the benefit for our business community.
Fantastic, and we've heard that today, and I will just note that we will come back and we will share so that you have confirmation that it is cheap as chips and we are cost neutral. That will mean though, and I'm just planting a seed, some of the things that you think we could look at might be nice to haves in that framing, and so we'll be sharing with you what we think the minimal looks like, and if you want to add things on, what the cost implications of those things would be. So, for example, the idea of utilising a recycling of doing X, Y, or Z might have a cost that relates to it that we have not factored in, that we'd consider that to be nice to have rather than the cheap as chips approach that we've put in. So we've tried to be reasonable, but also cheap as chips.
Cheap and cheerful. Let's say cheap and cheerful. Glenn?
Yeah, I just find it interesting. Great project, and I 100% support it. 100% support. I think it's brilliant. But we worked through the long-term plan and looked at, we don't have ports, we don't have infrastructure that generates income, and we all sat here and said, what can we do to have assets that generate income? And the first opportunity we have, and it's a really great project, to generate income, I'm not saying price gouging people and making millions of dollars, but to be a little bit more than cost neutral and maybe give a little bit back. And we will sit here and go, oh, no, we don't want to actually make any money on this. This just should be a cost neutral. And Liz, excuse me, you sit over there and you chip away at people when they're speaking. Other people's opinions are valid. And
Okay,
I think my
that.
opinion's valid.
We've heard that. Yep. Don't interrupt the speaker when they're
So I just
speaking,
think,
please.
I'm not saying I'm right, but it is interesting that we talk about stuff that we own that we can generate income, because we can't, and we've only got our rates. And this is a perfect opportunity just to eke a little bit, or not. It may be a perfect opportunity just to be exactly cost neutral. And I don't think we should just go cost neutrality. We should, in our modelling, we should look at the possibility.
Okay,
That's all I'm saying.
can I suggest a compromise around this? That we have a primary purpose, which we already agreed on, that this is to provide a vibrant space for the community and for the benefit of local businesses. But let's look and see if there's an opportunity to generate some income within that.
And
Okay.
elsewhere.
Yep. Martin?
Look, Coots makes a good point, and but after saying that, to me, what we're looking at is just something to put on the space as an interim measure, and we might be looking at something a bit more substantial further on down the track. As such, that's why I think the cost neutrality just gives us perhaps some first steps into businesses' opportunities to get moving. But I do like the idea of how it looks, how it links. Bit of lighting on the walls, or that sort of scenario, which can be relatively low cost, additional ways to create interest in the area. My question is real simple. It's just you had a picture of the actual plan there, but I can't see it on our. It hasn't been sent via email or anything like that. Is it possible to get that sent through?
Should have been on LG Hub. Was it not on
Must-
LG Hub?
I just wanted
Okay,
to
we'll
check.
look into it. If it's not
Yeah.
there, we'll put it there.
You know, that's cool. And but yeah, no, good points, Coots. But and I also would just, you know, that maybe this is a first step on things that we can do similar in other areas. So getting an idea of what the cost is, you know, what the payback is, how it all works is going to be good institutional information as we move forward, potentially for other projects as well, and that sort of stuff. So there's I think there's got to be a content aspect of that as well. We're trying something new, we're trying something a bit different. We don't want to cost anyone anything, but we want to see what it actually does cost, and whether it can be applied in other things as well. So now looking forward to seeing how it all pans out. Looking forward to it being there before Christmas.
Look,
Councillor
I
Curry.
just want to clarify that when I was talking before about not wanting to maximise the profit, I wasn't saying that we should just do it to be cost neutral either. So I was merely saying that the aim of it is not to get the maximum profit possible. The aim of it is to maximise benefit to the community while being at a minimum cost neutral. So I just really would appreciate it if people didn't misinterpret the things that I say. So that's where I'm coming from, and I agree with Janet that somewhere in the middle would be good if we can make a bit of return out of it as well. So be it. But we're not talking here about absolutely the driving force for this is not to be in business to maximise profit. The driving force here is to do something of benefit for the community with a well-rounded approach to how we do things.
Yeah, well said. But I do think Glenn raises a good point that we have said that we will look at opportunities to generate income, and I think it's really good to cast that lens over this and everything that we do. One last comment from Rob,
Thank
and
you.
then we'll wrap this up.
There's been discussion.
Oh, sorry,
Sophie,
I'm not looking at my list.
I just have a quick one. There's been discussions about the materials, using existing materials or used materials, and also we've been told that the units have actually been bought. Who's supplying them, and what sort of units are they?
That's a level of detail I'm not able
Yeah,
to provide.
and it's also
Well, I think it's appropriate
also
because
operational.
It's got pretty
It's
operational and previous questions.
It's within staff delegation to make decisions about
Okay,
procurement.
if we could have a briefing, a
level.
further briefing, or just a set of drawings and some indication as to a little bit more description of the scheme, particularly with Richard's comment about connections to the outside of it. You know,
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see more detail about what it'll look
Timar.
like further down the track.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, great. Sophie,
Sorry to put my light on so late. It's a really
That's
quick question
fine.
and maybe too much,
no, take your time.
too detailed. But you mentioned that it's mainly for businesses and that there's obviously a demand in that space for a physical space for them to be using, especially in kind of a temporary and transient type of way. If, for example, a community group or organisation wanted to use some of the space, would you perceive there to be a differentiation between how much a business would pay versus, say, a group of young people who wanted to hold a meeting in one of the pop-ups, if one of them was, as you say, used on a sort of hourly basis?
I think, and that was the point about the mixed use. So there was going to be, whereas an hourly rate basis that you could rent if you wanted to. So if that was a community group. So we're not saying you must meet this criteria to use this space. There was meant to be different spaces that could be used. Back to the idea of the idea of that bringing the community together, but also addressing a need, and even if it's temporarily in that space. So And I think to your point, Glenn and Nigel, if it's something that works, because it's a concept at the moment, the idea was that you can lift and shift it. And if there's a need somewhere else, you can do that. And so we had based it off something that's actually being done as close as Pororoa. And so they did something really, really basic, possibly more basic than we just showed you online. And it went off like a rocket because there's just such demand and need for it. And so that's what we were loosely applying this to because we want to see how it goes.
Very awesome. And the other, just to the point around parking, would be cool to see some bike stands or something in the entrance too. Just both in terms of visibility of, you know, the fact that we're encouraging people to think about different modes of transport, but also if you're biking, the nearest place to park your bike is now the new bike stands at the Waikanae train station, but would be good to have some visible on the site as well.
That's a good suggestion. Great. I think that wraps up that discussion. Fantastic project, and really brilliant to be doing this in Waikanae, and much needed. So all the best for the next stages. And thanks for the discussion. Well done, Isaac. Thank you. And we'll take a 5-minute breather before our next one because we're going to have to focus really hard.